We'll call the regular meeting in the New Ulm Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, May 9th, 2017, 8 a.m. to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. We do have a quorum, so we'll go on to approve number 2, approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll offer a motion to approve those.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the April 11th, 2017 meeting. Any discussion on anything? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 3, Brian Tolles isn't here, so we'll skip that one and go on to item number 4 from the EDA staff regarding administrative activities during the month of April 2017. Heather?
All right, good morning. We'll start with the Section 8 program note. We had 99 vouchers on the program for the month of April. HAP disbursements from HUD exceeded payments to landlords by just under $500. Administrative fee disbursements exceeded expenses by about $1,100. Can you hear me now? I always push that away, and Brian always pushes it back.
People want to hear you, Heather.
Note on pages 3 and 4 of the report the unaudited balances for the month of April. And note on page 5 of your report 99 vouchers on the program as of May 1st with a waiting list of 82. I'll mention that we are in the process of doing our annual waiting list purge, and you'll see the numbers drop significantly on the next report next month. If there's no questions on Section 8, we'll move on to public housing. Note, expenses have exceeded revenues by just under $15,000 for the year, and that's due to the large claims during the month of April for the annual property insurance and property taxes, so that is always kind of a bad month as far as that goes. Broadway Haus is fully leased with 51 on the waiting list. The family units are fully leased with 37 on the waiting list. We are in the process of updating those waiting lists as well, and some files were closed prior to this report. More have been closed since, so those waiting lists will also go down significantly next month. Note, the interior improvement project at Broadway Haus is progressing and is on schedule. Painting is very nearly completed, and the carpet replacement is in process. 4th floor and 3rd floor are finished, and this week they'll be working on 2nd floor and 1st floor. Moving on to the EDA Fund on page 10 of the report, cash assets of just under $133,000. And the spec house at 629 Fender Drive has been completed, and there will be an open house tonight for that property. Moving on to the property rehab loan program on page 11 of the report, available funds of $292,500, and a new loan request has been received in the amount of $50,000. And because that requires board approval, that will be discussed later in the agenda. Moving on to the rental property fund report on page 12, cash assets of just over $74,000. And finishing up with the Garden Terrace report, Garden Terrace has 86 units leased with 74 on the waiting list. They currently have 2 vacancies. I believe those have now been filled, or they're spoken for. They had 1 turnover last month, and they have received 1 move-out notice for June. Staff is in the process of obtaining quotes to replace the fire alarm system, and we'll bring that to you for approval next month. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Heather? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
I'll offer that motion to accept the administrative activity report.
I will second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Now we're going to jump back to item number 3 from the New Ulm Economic Development Coordinator regarding activities during the month of April 2017. Brian?
I did not, I was on vacation last week, so I didn't get a report to Heather, but I'll just call out a couple of things. We've been in contact with Kraft Heinz, who is seeking to secure the Heartland incentives for job creation, and we have instructed them as to what they must do. It's kind of clunky because we're working through a consultant that Kraft Heinz has hired. So we're not talking directly to them, we're working through their consultancy. So we've also been in contact with a developer out of Des Moines who has expressed interest in the Target building. And he hasn't made an offer, there's no paper, there's no offer, but he's expressing interest, and his intent would be to repurpose the building. And so we'll continue to work with him. And then thirdly, we did meet with Karen DeVell, who is the executive director of the German American Chamber of Commerce Midwest. And what we indicated to her was that we have incentives that would be available to German firms who would potentially open manufacturing facilities in New Ulm. So it was a very good meeting. Thanks to Bob.
Great.
Any questions?
Any questions for Brian?
Anything with our meat market individual?
Yeah, that's kind of gone quiet.
Kind of what I thought, but
Yeah. The last I had spoken with him, he was still trying to secure a location. He had discussions with the bank. He had done pricing on equipment and construction costs, but the construction costs are obviously dependent upon the location. So it's been at least 3 weeks since I've spoken with him. He just has gone quiet. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Entertain a motion accepting the report?
I'll move it.
offer a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll offer the motion to accept the New Ulm Economic Development Corporation Coordinator's Report regarding activities during the month of April.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5A, consider motion authorizing staff to sign a letter of intent with the Community Housing Development Corporation. Heather?
All right. At our last meeting on April 11th, the EDA approved a request by the developers for the State Street apartment for the EDA to consider converting a portion of their Section 8 housing choice vouchers into Section 8 project-based vouchers to be used in their 4 long-term homeless units. The EDA approved that request. I did some checking into it after that meeting, and at this point, until we find out if they had a successful tax credit application, there's really nothing more I can do. But they did ask us to write a letter of intent that they can submit with their tax credit application, stating that we are willing to provide them with 4 project-based vouchers for their building should their application be successful. So I've attached the proposed letter, and we're just asking for permission to have Brian sign that and submit it to the Community Housing Development Corporation to submit with their application. A question that was raised last month was the term of the HAP contract with project-based vouchers, and it looks like it can be a term of anywhere from 1 to 15 years. The EDA had expressed maybe just wanting to do a year initially. The Community Housing Development Corporation, of course, would like us to commit to the 15 years, but they're willing to take whatever we're comfortable with. So I think the letter states that it would be a 1-year term and would renew annually.
Thank you.
Why would we only want to sign a 1 year?
That was the conversation we had last month. I think because we've never done this before, this is new, we'd kind of want to test it out before we made a 15-year commitment. if I recall.
Well, we certainly need more Section 8 housing. I'm going to approve the letter.
Do we have a second?
Just one question. Do you think we should consider going a little longer term? What would your recommendation be?
I think it might help their scoring on their tax credit application if we had a firm 15-year commitment, but they're willing to accept whatever
Right.
we're willing to give.
If I recall, part of the discussion we had too is when we convert these vouchers to section-based or project-based, excuse me, they're, in a sense, don't become portable anymore. They would stay right in our community. So the money that's allocated for our housing development office would, in essence, stay within the community then.
These 4 vouchers would stay with this building. Someone that was in the building using a project-based voucher, if they did want to move, they could go back to the housing choice vouchers and they could move with that voucher because those are portable, but these 4 vouchers would stay with this building.
That said, I guess I would be open to considering maybe going with a 5-year. I don't know what you guys,
I'm okay with that.
a 5-year term on that. I don't know what anyone else's thoughts are, but if giving them a little more time would increase their chances of approval, I think that would be another consideration we'd want to make.
We need apartments and we need Section 8, so.
There's no downside to it, really. So.
No, not that I see.
So I would change in the 4th paragraph down, the term of the agreement for project-based vouchers is 5 years from initial occupancy with 1-year renewals thereafter.
Well, or with, yeah,
Renewal, maybe just take the 1-year renewal out. With renewal contingent on HD.
right.
Maybe it'd be a 5-year, another 5-year continuance potentially.
Or I could just say with renewals contingent on
Yes.
HUD funding and just not
Yep.
put a.
Sure.
So
So that's a amendment to my motion?
I would like to do that, sir, if that's okay with
Fine
you.
with me. Will you second that motion?
I will second that motion.
You're so cooperative.
I'll make the change on that letter and send it up to Brian.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to make it a 5-year contract. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6, consider approving and plans and specifications for the Broadway Haus Reroofing Project. Heather?
All right, we have been talking about the Broadway House roof now, I feel like, for several years. We have had some leaks over the last several years, and it's come to the point now the building official is recommending a roof replacement. So we've worked together to put a bid package together. It is in our 5-year plan, so we can utilize capital fund grants for the program. As far as the schedule, we're looking to open bids June 2nd, award the bid at the June EDA meeting on the 13th of June, and have the project completed by October 31st. The current roof was replaced in 1997, so 20 years ago, and has reached the end of its usable life. We're estimating the project cost to be around $150,000. So we may not have enough capital fund grants to cover the project, so we could use our operating fund balance if needed. The 2017 grant should be announced soon. I think, did Congress finally pass a budget for funding the government through September? I've lost track of where that's at, but once that goes through, then we should.
Rumor
receive
has
our-
it the government's still operating today, so I think they passed, for now.
Yeah, I
anyway.
couldn't find, I was looking and I couldn't find anything. The last I found was where they did the 1-week extension. But it's come out that they've come up with an agreement, and it looks like, as far as how that affects HUD, Section 8 funding looks stable. Public Housing Operating Fund looks like it'll take a slight decrease. Capital Fund grants got a slight increase. So I'm expecting to get about the same or maybe a little more than we've been getting for capital funds for 2017. And if that comes out in time, we could use that for the roof project, but it's up in the air, so.
Do we have any other large Broadway House projects coming up that?
This was the big one we've kind of been saving up for.
Furnace or nothing else?
If you recall, we've discussed this before, but we took part of one grant and an entire grant. I think it was part of the 2011 grant and the entire 2012 grant, and we moved those into operating and earmarked those for the roof project. So when I say we could use operating fund balance, we kind of put money into the operating fund for this project, so.
It was coming. I'm going to approve the plans and specs for the Broadway House Roofing Project.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6B, consider approving plans and specification for the Broadway House security camera system. Heather.
All right, this is another project we've talked about in the past. We are proposing to install a security camera system to monitor the interior common areas of the building and the 4 exterior doors and parking lot area. This project also is in our 5-year plan, so we can use capital funds to pay for the project. We are looking at opening bids the end of June, bringing this to the board for approval at the July 11th meeting, and having the project completed by August 31st. We currently don't have security cameras in the building, but staff and tenants are strongly in favor of installing the camera system. We estimate the project cost to be $15,000. I might be a little high on that. I think my initial estimate was $10,000. And we would be using capital fund grants also for this project. The tenants keep asking me, when are we getting cameras? When are we getting cameras? And I brought it up a couple years ago, and it was felt that they weren't needed. I am bringing it up again because I really feel they are needed. We had talked to at one time of providing assisted living services in the building, and some companies I've talked to are hesitant to provide those services without the security camera system because it provides some protections for their staff of being accused of things. So until I get the camera system, I really can't move forward with bringing services into the building.
So your cameras
So
are
I've been
focused in
kind of
what areas?
This would be the 4 entrances to the building, the lobby and community room area on first floor, the hallways on where the apartments are on all 4 floors, and then maybe 1 or 2 in the parking lot area. We have had some vandalism outside. My guess is people maybe walking home after bar close, things like that. The camera system would tape and we'd be able to go back for a period of time and review if there was an incident. We could, we're not going to sit and be watching these cameras and spying on our tenants. But if something happens, we'd be able to go back and review and find out what happened and who's responsible. Would cut down on a lot of the he said, she said. Someone knocked on my door at 3 in the morning, but by the time I went and looked out the peephole, they were gone. Just those nuisance types of complaints, as well as I would imagine if they know the cameras are there, it's going to prevent a lot of shenanigans.
Usually does. We do have a security entrance on all door entrances.
Yes, it is a
so
secured building.
You can't just wander in off the street. It's probably why a couple of years ago when they said, do we really need it when people can't get in, the public can't get in there anyway, but it still doesn't prevent those tenants that might be doing something they shouldn't be.
Yeah, we have had a couple incidents where people that don't belong there are in there, and we don't know how they got in. And again, having the cameras, I'd be able to review, did someone let them in? Did they follow someone in? How did they get in the building?
We've had a couple of situations where it was tenant-to-tenant issues also. And, who's dropping garbage as they walk down the hallway, who's being You know, who's going in, you know, somebody said the stuff was missing from their apartment.
Mhm.
You know, we could go back and say, you're the only one going in and out of your apartment, you know. Or there actually was somebody that went
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So, for the expense, I think it would, it makes the tenants feel safer. It gives us the ability to go back in time and see what actually happened.
These cameras have went down in price a lot, you know, and some of the other boards I sit on are a lot higher than this 10 or 15,000.
Yeah, I feel like my estimate might be high. I'm hoping that it'll come in lower, but
Well, at this point, we're just proving the specs and getting the costs, so I'm gonna move
Right.
this.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6C, consider motion authorizing payment of the public housing program claims. Heather, you have anything on it, or pretty much routine?
we've had a couple elevator repairs. I've been working with Minnesota Elevator on that. There might be a part, if it breaks down again, there's a part that would be covered under warranty because we just did a major upgrade project on the elevator a couple years ago. So if that should break down again, I'm going to ask that they go ahead and replace it since it is covered under warranty, because those repair bills get pricey real quick.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve payment of expenses.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the public housing claims. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 7A, consider resolution authorizing a loan from the EDA Fund to Fund 260 to the City TIF Fund H5 Fund 365. Heather, or Nicole, I guess, huh?
This would be, I believe, the 9th loan that they've done to help cover those TIF expenses. I would suspect it will be a continuing loan as long as the project is still going.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you know how many dollars are outstanding total with the previous advances and this proposed advance?
You know, I had my worksheet and I didn't bring it with me. I can't remember.
Is this a typical amount of
Yeah,
advance?
oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
It's
this
usually
if
between
we,
55 and 63,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
and you said we anticipate some more?
Yeah, probably annually.
Okay. And do we know how much is coming in currently from the assessments and TIF funds to date?
There really isn't much coming in there because everybody that's been up there has qualified, haven't they? Or am I?
So
Well,
most,
yeah, but their property taxes will be going into the TIF fund to help pay, so we got 19 houses, and if all the TIF is collected, you know, even if they're paying $2,000, so that'd be $38,000.
not going to cut it right now, is it?
Just as an overall concept of what needs to be done here is that I think staff would propose that we would continue on with the TIF till the end of its life, no matter how much the EDA has to put in there,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
And then whatever that amount is, you know, the EDA, with the not Broadway, with Garden Terrace, you know, has another source of money that can, basically, you can use that money to pay these loans back to the EDA, because the TIF won't be able to do it. It was one of those where you sit back and say, well, if this first subdivision got built in 3 years, the money would come in faster, and then we could get on to the next phase and the next phase, and well, that didn't happen, so we're just short on the amount of TIF that comes in. But the logical thing to do is to capture as much TIF as we can, even though it's not 100%, and then at the end of the TIF, you know, deal with those loans. Either write them off and just say that was the cost of the EDA. We've got another project. I mean, the original water, sewer, sub-base, gravel, that's these monies. The project that was done last year, which was the asphalt, curb and gutter, street lighting, Heather and I have talked about that since we don't have enough money to even pay for the first project, that we may use the, our cash, annual cash revenue off of other projects, just to wipe that out. I mean, we'll never get that $700,000 based off of what the information is right now.
Sure.
So EDA is responsible for it, so we just pay it, and then that'll be gone.
Well, the only reason I'm asking is because one of the other discussion items is phase 2 that we're considering. And based on our experience here, would it be wise for us to think of TIF as a possible financing mechanism in phase 2 for some of those lots and some of that cost? Or
Oh, sure.
are we just asking more trouble for ourselves if we?
Well, it's not necessarily trouble. What it is if you have a source of revenue, even though it only contributes 40% to the cost, it's 40% you
wouldn't have otherwise
had
had.
otherwise.
There we go. Okay.
So, in the big scheme of things, it's a benefit.
Sure.
It's
Okay.
just that EDA has to come up with the balance of the money.
Sorry for asking the questions, but you know who the newbie is
Yep,
on the.
Yep.
Okay, so,
So we'll be talking more about the other costs or the street projects later on.
Great,
When those
okay.
come due, and then we'll have a proposal on how to handle that.
great, okay. Thank you for your information.
So with
Any-
that, you offering the resolution?
I will
on that?
offer the resolution since been the,
I'll second the resolution.
We got a motion and a second off the resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Heather, please call the roll.
I didn't realize this was a resolution.
Got you on
Commissioner
that one
Brown,
anyway.
yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
and President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 7B, consider motion adopting revised income limits for the Brown County Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Public Housing Programs. Heather.
Okay, this is another one of those annual items that comes up. Each year, HUD comes out with new income limits for the program, and those are the income limits that we are required to go by. They just came out. They were effective April 14th. So I'm bringing them to you for approval. We use 2 income limits for our program. The very low income limits are the income limits the family would need to be below to even go on the waiting list. And then our waiting list has a preference to help the extremely very low income families first. So that's the lower income bracket you see there. They are given higher priority on the waiting list. So that's why you'll see sometimes I talk about the income limits to be eligible, and sometimes I talk about the income limits to be high priority. That's what I'm talking about. You can see that the median family income for Brown County increased from $67,500 to $67,900 from last year, which is good news. We like to see those tick upward. I only recall them going down one year, and that was after the recession. And since then, they've been coming back up. So, you have any?
And these limits, looks like we're
questions
actually
there?
going back a little bit. They're effective April 14th.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to offer the motion.
I will second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 7C, receive letter from the Minnesota Housing Partnership.
All right. I believe last month I mentioned that we had applied for a technical assistance grant with Minnesota Housing Partnership Strengthening Rural Communities program. I did receive a letter dated April 24th, 2017, informing us that our application was selected as a recipient for this program, which we're very excited about. This is good news. This is technical assistance that will follow us for 3 or 4 years as we try to develop some new housing in our area. So the timing, I feel like everything's coming together. We're getting our housing study, we're getting this technical assistance grant, we're having the visioning session group discussions. So I feel like we're in a really good place right now to really try to make some things happen and develop some new housing in our area to meet the needs. So just wanted to share the letter and let you know we did receive that technical
What's the dollar
assistance.
amount?
I don't think there's a dollar amount to it. It's more their time. They're giving us their time and their assistance and their advice.
I'll offer a motion to receive the letter from Minnesota Housing Partnership.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second receiving the letter. Any more discussion?
Just thumbs up to Heather for getting that approved.
Absolutely.
Thank
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 7D, consider motion to solicit quotes for the spec house improvements.
Right. This item I put on the agenda after a discussion I had with Commissioner Brom. He had talked about or suggested that maybe we would like to obtain quotes to add a front sidewalk and concrete driveway to the 2 spec houses that are on the market to make it more attractive to a potential buyer. As far as the concrete driveway, we wouldn't necessarily have to do the full driveway, but at least maybe an apron, so they at least could get up to the garage door and get out and not be on mud.
I can offer a little background too. I had a discussion with the Southwest Housing Partnership, and as you may be aware, they're involved with a lot of affordable housing projects throughout southern Minnesota. And one of the came up for discussion was the projects they were doing in St. Peter, and their affordable houses in St. Peter are going in excess of $200,000, and ours are around 165. It would just seem like ours would sell in a heartbeat, and the ones in St. Peter would maybe be more difficult to sell, and it's really not the case. And so through the course of our discussion, they said that what St. Peter's doing is completing more of a house for that price. So that's the only reason I wanted to bring it up for discussion today, to see if this would be something the board would consider, if maybe we put a little more money into it and add a little more amenities or whatever, and thus impacting the price somewhat, that maybe they make these homes more marketable. But I understand is sometimes the last thing you want to do is put more money into a project where you're already losing money. So it's one of those things that we'd want to approach, I guess, carefully, and if we decide to spend money, make sure that it's being wisely spent. So what my thought was is if we just went out and contacted maybe the builder of these houses and just said, hey, if we added these particular items to it, what would that do to the cost? And then and maybe talk to the realtor and say, do you think that would make this more marketable? Get some of their expertise involved as well, and then from there make a decision whether or not we feel that's prudent to move forward with that. So
I'll just note, when we first started building houses up there, we did include the front sidewalk, the concrete driveway. We provided a range and refrigerator and a water softener. As the cost of construction kept going up, we had to start scaling back just to try and keep our price affordable. So, we've scaled back what we do provide. The house at 633 Fender Drive has been on the market since September of 2016, so not quite a year. The other house we just finished, and we're having our first open house tonight, so who knows, but we have them priced right now at a near break even, so any additional cost we put into the house is probably going to result in a net loss when we sell it. So
unless we were to raise the price subsequently to cover those additional costs.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We just came down $5,000
I
on both houses, so how do we go back and...
That's one of the dilemmas we face right now.
So, I'm just throwing it out there. Do we even want to get quotes, or do we want to leave them where they are? We just wanted to have the discussion and...
Right. I mean, there's a pretty valid argument to just leave well enough alone too, but
the realtor is here. We could ask
I was
him
thinking
for
the same
his
thing. We got a realtor in the audience.
suggestions.
He's the expert.
Maybe before we make a decision, if he'd like to.
Do you mind giving us some advice?
I would get quotes.
You get
I would
quotes?
too. I agree with you. My opinion is when we first went into this project, we didn't have curb and gutter, nothing. Now we put curb and gutter in.
True.
Now if we're gonna leave something in between unfinished, doesn't really make sense to me. I think if we want something that is appealing to the people out there, the buyer, let's put it in. I mean, bottom line is if we lose another couple thousand, we lose it, but let's try to get rid of them.
Yeah.
They might be our last two.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know that,
Well,
yeah.
the other
I
thing.
hope it's our last.
The other thing to keep in mind is that communities in the area, I mean, the comment from these folks was New Ulm has the least priced affordable houses of any of the projects they're working on in southern Minnesota. So I think one of the things to keep in mind is if we do another house is to probably factor those in right from the start, and then when we get to a price, that price is probably going to be higher. I think we've done, what we tried to do is keep that price down, but we started this in what, 2008, 2009? We're trying to keep houses in that price range, and the fact of the matter is they've gone up. I can speak as a mortgage lender too. For people buying homes, it's often easier to get those sorts of things rolled into the price than for them to try to come back after the fact and try to tackle those out of pocket, because for somebody buying their first home or an affordable home, they're getting every penny they've got just into purchasing that house, and to come back and expect those sorts of things. They'd rather have it kind of financed into the price of the home too. So I would think that getting the quotes, at least it's worth considering, and then from there we can decide what we might want to do with the prices. So
I certainly don't mind the quotes. I went on the website last night and was kind of looking at them, and then I kind of looked at other houses on the market, and the other thing I noticed with our particular pictures, that they're dreary, the house is dark, they're just two caliber sets of different pictures from our realtors' pictures of their homes and whoever snapped the shots of this house, and it just like there was just a lot of shadows. It's just real dark pictures. So take a look for yourself. I think we need to remarket those pictures and get some brighter pictures out there. And it just to me was a stark difference from the caliber of the pictures. So are you offering a?
I will offer the motion, since I brought this whole mess to the limelight anyway to begin with. So I'll offer the motion to get bids for some improvements to these spec houses.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Consider development, or item number 7E, consider development options for the property plotted as Lot 1, Block 2, 5th North Street, First Edition. Heather.
All right, Commissioner Brom can take credit for this item as well.
Why are you picking on me today?
We are on the Housing Needs Initiative task force together, so we have been having some robust discussions on what we can do to provide some housing in New Ulm, much needed housing. So we do have the undeveloped section of the Milford Heights subdivision that we're looking at, and Community Development Director Schnobrook helped me fill in some of the history that's there for your review. I don't think I need to go through all of that. I'll just mention that Phase 1 is the one currently under development. We have 17 lots sold, 2 spec houses currently for sale, and then we have 10 bare lots remaining in that first phase. We have just over 20 acres of undeveloped property on the site. We have had developers interested in that land, so we thought it might be prudent to start talking about developing a preliminary plat for the undeveloped area. We can't sell any of that land until it's been platted, so we need to start the ball rolling if we want to start developing that phase. I had always thought this development was 3 phases, but in looking back, at one point it actually was 4 phases. It's my understanding that really doesn't matter. We can kind of throw that out the window and we can do what we want. We could develop this whole chunk and just call it phase 2 and be done, or we could develop part of it and leave another section undeveloped. So I've provided you all with a map that I got from Bolton and Mink that shows phase 1 that is currently platted and that we are developing now, and then it has just the empty blocks. So it shows you where the streets and alleys are and then the chunks of land. We could redraw that and make the blocks different if we wanted to. I'm suggesting keeping them the same, but maybe just changing the lot sizes. The preliminary plan had 96 or 97 lots for the total subdivision. If we make the lots bigger and more market rate, you know, we could end up with 80 lots. It's really whatever you guys decide to do. I'll take your feedback today and go back to Bolton and Mink, and they'll start working on a preliminary plat. We'll bring that back to you. We could, you know, that could go through several phases until you get it the way you want it and approve a final plat. Another discussion we wanted to have was, do we want to do any rezoning there? The current subdivision is entirely zoned as R1 single-family residence. You know, do we want to do some rezoning in some areas to allow for some twin homes or townhomes, multifamily? That's all up for discussion. And
When does our housing study, that'll be available at the next meeting?
we should be presenting the final draft of the housing study at the June meeting.
I don't know if we have the cart before the horse, but I think I'd like to look at that study before we make decisions on, I mean, if the study really says we need lots of twin homes, I think that would change our planning, correct? Our lot sizes and our,
I guess I'm gonna agree with Les, that he took it out of my mouth already, the cart before the horse. I think we don't really wanna do anything until we get the reports,
certainly
because,
need to look at it.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was the discussion we had late last year, was we were gonna kind of put this discussion off until we got the housing study. Like I say, I put it back on because, at the request of Commissioner Braun, because he wanted to start having the discussion, so.
I think, again, going back to the discussions I've had with the Southwest Partnership, and they were the party that really was our partner with the whole Milford Heights. And going back to, you know, the question I proposed to them, and this is just based on the feedback we've been getting from the Housing Needs Initiative, is that there's really a desire to have some sort of mix in some of the housing. Certainly, single-family detached housing is going to be a part of, or would be a part of phase 2. The other components are going to be some other types of housing, be it twin homes or maybe patio homes or some attached housing. And I think today, if we authorize this, I don't think it's really pushing us into making any sort of commitment. And actually, what it would do is, I think, complement us receiving the housing study, because really all you're looking for and authorizing here is just to get some design concepts. You wouldn't come back next month with a proposed plat, I would believe, right?
No, there's actually no motion being taken. This is just for discussion.
Okay.
To start working on a preliminary plat. So, and like I say, that's going to take probably several meetings before we get to a final version.
Right. And part of what we're doing with the housing initiative as well is trying to get our action plan drafted and put into writing to go with the tax credit project with the middle school. And what we've done so far is relied on the 2012 housing study, and a lot of the components that we see in that study are still things we're hearing today as far as the need of the mix of type of housing we're talking about. So I'd be extremely surprised if the 17 study would come out and there'd be anything dramatically different. If anything, there may be a greater need expressed now than what was maybe expressed in the 2012 study. So I don't personally think, I think we're running in tandem and not one in front of the other if we go through with this. I think we can anticipate what some needs are, but I think it's just going to be simply getting an idea of what sort of distribution we might look at in terms of the platting process. But I think that if we go ahead with this discussion and get some information, we can come back with that information as well as the housing study, and then I think it's not we're going to have to wait for one or the other. I think we can kind of move both of these forward at the same time and then have more relevant information to go ahead and put a plat together for phase 2. So that's, I guess, why I wanted to talk about it today.
Certainly good to have this information in front of us. Just good to see what the original concept was. But.
I did also invite Jeff Dietrich here to provide maybe his thoughts on what buyers might want to see in that new phase. And since he did
You're
take
being
the
called
time to come,
upon
I'd like to
again,
hear
Jeff.
from him.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm Jeff Dietrich with Century 21 Keckett Realty. Live at 800 South Garden. Yeah, Heather asked me to come today to talk about the future phases of Milford Heights. It's getting very difficult to create affordable housing anymore. I mean, I think you guys all know that. I did a development over in Cortland similar to this years ago, and tell you it was much easier back then than it is now with all the codes and changes. But my personal opinion, if you've got, I hear you've got one developer, possibly two, that are interested in doing something up there. If you've got a developer that's willing to, go the extra mile to do something up there, and I've talked with him, I know him personally, awfully good builder. He's looking at doing single family and a twin home concept. I would do a mix up there. When the diocese was developed, there was a few multifamily lots up there, on the end along Highland. Do something similar to that. We're getting more and more people that are looking for number one, patio homes, nothing with a basement, nothing with steps, and twin homes. Got people, the older population, they head south for the winter, or you got younger ones that are coming into town as business professionals. They don't want to deal with snow removal, they don't want to deal with lawn care, they just want to live there. So you're seeing a good mix of people coming to town looking for that. We've got someone who's going to be building twin homes out on Liberty Street, 6 or 8 out there. So he's going to be breaking ground soon, hopes to have one up by September. We've had a lot of interest, a lot of people calling. We just took a simple classified ad and put twin homes in there, and we've had people call, want to get on the mailing list, so we have information, we mail it out to them. So there's a definite need for twin homes. The other thing that we're seeing is move-up buyers. We've got people who have a house now for like 120. They want to move up to something 160, 180. Can't find it. And in that 160, 180, you're competing with people coming into town. So it's kind of a clash. I don't know if a builder can build something for 160, 180, something like that. But you mentioned St. Peter at 220. Even if we had homes like that for market rate, we'd be able to sell those. But what people are looking for is larger lots, attached garages. I know if you were to do something where you got bigger lots, you could possibly do a development similar to what I would call what the city did years ago down Hounstein. You've got some nice houses down there. They don't necessarily have alleys because with the individual cul-de-sacs on Upper and Lower Wallahigh, but they've got front-loaded garages. Granted, I know Southwest Minnesota does not like front-loaded garages. I worked with them in the past, but this is, you're looking at market rate, and I think that's a big need right now is market rate. And as far as building lots go, if you were to redo the second phase for larger building lots, we're running into shortage of building lots. The diocese has a few lots up there, but they're controlled by a certain builder. And what you guys might consider, the city considers building lots a lot that you can build on. In the realty world, we consider building lots that you can sell. Because I know it was brought up one other time, and we disagreed with it, but then I went to thinking, okay, there probably are. The city has an inventory of 200 building lots. But we look at building lots that are for sale, there's not near that amount. Like say Bob had a home on a corner, owned the next lot in, the city considers that a building lot, Bob considers that to be part of his homestead, so to speak.
It's where you have your garden, right, Bob?
So, you know, that's what we're looking at as far as people willing to sell building lots. We're at a shortage. The diocese owns a big chunk of land up there. With everything going on with them, they're probably not going to sell anytime soon. And I mentioned the affordability thing. When people are paying $30,000 plus an acre for land up that direction, you know, west of town, it's tough to do any residential development. It really is. And obviously the south end, we can't go anywhere. So that's just my 2 cents on the market, so to speak.
Jeff, what would you consider a lot dimension for a market rate lot?
Anything more than 50, you're probably looking at 70 to 75 feet wide. And there are some 50-foot lots for sale in town, and they're not moving because the wants of the buyer. I mean, you know, and in this market, the wants of the buyer is what's kind of driving it. So those are my thoughts.
Great.
And we'll have more. I know we have Hot Topics coming up on
Thursday.
Thursday, so
yeah.
we'll see how that goes. And there was a good turnout for the League of Women Voters thing the other night. So the housing thing is on the front burner, and I think it's really important that this isn't new. This isn't something unique to New Ulm. This is all over the country. I was at a Century 20 convention, and I talked to a guy from Raleigh, North Carolina. He goes, "We only have 1,000 houses on the market." He goes, "We normally have 6,000." So this isn't unique to New Ulm. It's just the way it is right now. So.
From a perspective of design, internally we've had a discussion about the value of land closest to the park versus the value of land further west in that subdivision. Do you have any thoughts on, you know, when we sit there and talk about single family versus twin homes, or maybe, you know, maybe a large apartment complex, you know? Where would you place them within that subdivision?
As far as multifamily, or
Well,
just
the singles, the twins, and multifamily.
I would put singles right close to the park. You know, for families walking to, you know, and make it accessible for families to get to the park. I think the in the diocese where the city or the diocese whoever laid it out, they put the twin homes along Highland. It's not a terrible place. Obviously, Highland's a lot busier than what these streets in here would be. So if you put them on the ends, if you're going to do a twin homes, you could get them a little bit away from the park, you know, because some of the people that buy the twin homes want a little bit quieter, a little more privacy, things like that. But obviously, I would definitely put single family near the parks just to entice families to come up there to take advantage of the park. I don't know what plans are in the future for development. That's probably a park and rec thing, but that's one of the when I give tours of New Ulm for Craft, 3M, Alina, whoever, I take them past all the parks because I tell them no matter where you live in New Ulm, you are more than likely within walking distance of a park, if not more than one. I mean, and that's a huge selling point to people coming to town. So, anything else?
I would, you know, at least offer this to the board in the fact that this was set up, the design of the streets was set up for single family, you know, dwelling. If we were to go to, you know, one of these streets off of North Street and say that's going to be one big hunkin' lot, and that'll be for a 50-unit apartment complex, and you know, there's no requirement that road has to be there. You know, we could take a road out and, you know, put multifamily in there if that's what we would like to see. I mean, we still have to go through the process, you know, of rezoning. But this was the original concept, but it's not cut in stone. We can always move things. It's just, I think we did some preliminary dirt work that kind of laid out where the roads were. So you'll see dips, you know, where the roads should go. But it can be different than what it looks like here.
There's been no infrastructure moved
Yeah,
out there either, so there's no considerations or worries about that.
All we have to do is make sure that the 3 streets that are heading north got to go someplace. You know, I mean, they could go to a cul-de-sac. They could, you know, but they have to.
Well, and I think this goes back to what originally we brought this in for discussion, is to simply get some design concepts going. So we can get a few different options put on paper so that Heather can come back to give us some ideas. And Jeff's input was invaluable today, I think, too, to get his perspective. But that's really, and I have to believe that whatever we discuss, we're not going to make any final decisions or commitments on until after such time as we see the housing study. But I think we all have a pretty good idea, Jeff, you've already hit a lot of it, what people are looking for today. And obviously, if we want to move forward with phase 2, we want to do things that are going to be desirable to the public and what people are looking for. So I think that's part of what we want to try to consider. I believe, Heather, in one of our discussions, you said you could meet with a land surveying company, and they could put out some ideas of how to lay out the lots, just even in a proposed manner. But if they came back with, say, 2 or 3 or 4 different concepts, thinking, yes, we want some single family, yes, we want some patio homes, yes, we want to look at some twin homes, how best can we configure this to maximize what number one, people are looking for today, and to get the types of lots and the best use of that land, because right now we got a clean slate, so let's look at it in terms of what we can best put out there. And my goal, I guess, is trying to keep moving that ball forward so we can keep, because we keep hearing it when we go to these different public forums and such, people are looking for us to take some action and for some things to happen. So I guess that's my desire here, is that we just keep moving forward with it all.
And my only feedback to that too is we have this great property up here, but this housing study might tell us that not everything should belongs up here as well. We have other property in town that we could also develop.
Are you talking the EDA, you mean, or?
Sure.
Okay.
Potentially. When we did the housing study in '07, did we have a public hearing or anything on the results of that? That was before my time, so.
The last housing study in
07, did we,
2012?
once we got the study, did we publicize it? Did we have a public hearing on it so people could give input, like our realtors?
I think it was just
No.
received, and then, everybody who wanted one, like the realtors and developers, got their copies.
We might want, I guess we don't know the results, but once we get it, we might want that feedback before we make big major plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess at this point, like Dan said, Bolton Mink has told me they would be able to take some feedback that we get today, give me some preliminary design concepts to bring back to you. They won't charge for that because they did the original design, so they've already got this, and it wouldn't take much for them to go in and tweak it. So they said they would do that at no charge, just so I could bring back some options for you to look at and kind of figure out what direction we want to go.
But again,
I
without
don't
the
have any-
housing
yeah.
study, we're gonna ask somebody to design and come back with something that we have no idea if we're gonna need more townhomes, more twin homes, more single-family homes. So we're doing work that we don't really have a need for yet, because we really don't know what we need. So,
Month
you
from
know,
now we might.
we might wanna put this all into multifamily homes. Maybe we want it all single homes. We don't know that. Without the study, I
Well,
don't
if we
think we're
receive
gonna
the
know.
housing study next month and see what the
Yeah.
needs are, we could look at the designs they've come up with and figure out which one best meets the needs based on what we're hearing.
Exactly, or none of them.
Yeah.
Like you say, but at
I
least
think we know,
we have
like-
something tangible in front of us that we can compare to the study, and we're making no commitments to do anything at this point except obtain additional information so we can make a better and more informed decision going forward.
But we're still designing something that we don't know what we need.
I think
Well,
we
I
do
think
know
we have
what
a
our
pretty
needs
good
are. I think
idea
we're
what we
hearing
need.
it loud and
Yes.
clear.
But without the
We're not
study-
totally in the dark.
No, I know, but
Well,
I still think it's, we're gonna probably do some work that we wouldn't have to do if we wait for the study. It isn't that far away. Take the study and then say, okay, we need more this, more that, then we might design it completely different. Why design it and then redesign it?
Yeah, 30 days isn't going to make
It's a
a
month.
difference
It's a
one
month.
way or the
I'm-
other.
Right.
And I think what Heather and I have seen the preliminary, and we've talked to the consultant and all that. So we've already got our knowledge of
Right.
what's kind of in the report,
The
and
sneak
so
peek.
I think we should probably just wait for the full report to come out, I think, and then move on. I mean, it's all electronic, but I guess I would agree if they came up with 10 different things, and that's a lot of wasted time as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
That's what I see. It's just, we're spinning our
Only a
wheels and
month.
accomplishing
Hang in
nothing.
there.
No, you can answer to the public then, because you guys are elected.
Well, I don't think 30 days is going to make a difference. We're not going to accomplish it in the next year anyway, I'll be honest.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, actually,
Dan and I are hearing a lot of frustration from the community of why is it so slow to happen? Why aren't we doing it? So we're feeling pressured
Sure.
to get things moving, but you feel pretty strongly we should wait. It's a month.
Right.
the
I mean-
plating process is a process, and that could take a couple of months.
Oh, absolutely.
And this year, we can't put any utilities in, and so it has to be done, next year. So when you put it in the timing perspective, the 30 days doesn't impact the final product, because we wouldn't have it going in until 2018, and you couldn't have any houses probably being built until 2019.
I would anticipate we're going to need several work sessions once we get that housing study, because in half an hour, what our normal meetings are.
That's where the community gets frustrated, though. It's like, it takes so long. And not only does the EDA need to, go through all those meetings to come up with a final plat, then it has to go to zoning, then it has to go to city council. It just seems, to the public, it feels like it drags on and on. So, like I say, we're just feeling some of that pressure because of the meetings we've been at with the public. So,
Well, I heard it at the public housing meeting the other night. Had
Mr.
people-
President,
Yes.
prior to being elected as mayor, I was very frustrated with how long everything took, until you realize what the city has to go through.
right.
Just a shelter in a park just can't be built. It's a whole series of things that the city has to go through for legal, for insurance, for safety, all of these things. And if I wanted to build a shelter on the back half of my wife's garden, or the front half, I could probably just build a shelter and probably be up before the 4th of July. The city can't do that, and that's what somebody who's not involved with the city has a hard time understanding, and I still sometimes have a hard time understanding it, but I've been involved now for a couple of years and just realize that there are steps that a government entity has to take, and it's frustrating for all of us, but that's the difference.
Well, the item was just up for discussion. Like I say, there was no motion to take any action. And I think we've had the discussion, and the consensus is to wait, to have further discussions until after the housing study comes out next
I think as
month.
soon as we can get a copy of that housing study, the better. So I don't know if
That'll be June 13th.
June 13th,
Okay.
that'll be after our next meeting?
June 13th is our next
Is our
meeting.
next meeting?
Okay.
Will it be available prior to that?
Typically not. They'll come down and present it to you at the meeting.
I mean, we can give it to the EDA board for sure.
I would
and then
recommend we get it
you have-
out.
You have an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to look at it, and on the 13th, you can receive it.
Okay.
Sure, I do, I'd appreciate it. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jeff.
Item 8A, consider motion approving with conditions a $50,000 loan from the Commercial Property Loan Program to Homegrown Properties LLC. Heather. Dave,
This
sorry.
is Dave.
You weren't back there for nothing, were you?
No. Dave Schnobert, Community Development Director. The EDA may remember that approximately a year ago, you established a requirement that any loan request from this particular program. If it exceeded $25,000, it needed to return to this body for approval. The applicants for this particular loan, which is for $50,000, are Jackie Forrest, Ann Wenninger, and Cindy Wenninger, and they're doing this on behalf of Homegrown Properties, which is an LLC. They also do business as Sewing Seeds Quilt Company, and I might note that two of those individuals are here with us today. The subject property is located at 1417 South State Street. Project involves an addition to an existing building as well as renovation of that existing building. Total project cost and total loan amount is $211,730. That includes the EDA's contribution of $50,000. Alliance Bank will finance the project. Alliance has had an appraisal done of the project, so they have an as-is value, which is the current value of the property, which is $118,000. Their as-proposed value, so that upon the completion of the project, the property will have a value of $330,000. We did a computation then, looking at existing debt against the property and the proposed market value, and we end up with remaining equity. So the EDA's loan should be, covered by the value of the property. We also, as part of the loan package, will be securing guarantees from the three applicants.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Dave?
The city attorney is recommending the promissory note and mortgage personal guarantees from all three applicants and owners. What does he mean by personal guarantees?
That's where the individual guarantees that the
I promise I will.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So they pledge.
A guarantee
Their
would be called upon if other means of repayment aren't adequate to service or satisfy the debt.
Okay. And the bank has already vested this, so we have our folks here. Do they want to say anything? You can if you want. You don't have to.
We're ready to go.
Ready to go? Well, they're ready to go. They've been vested. I'm going to offer this motion to approve $50,000 loan to Homegrown Properties LLC.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
This will bring our, where did I read on here? We have 302,000 in the bank on the EDA loan account, which will bring us down to the 250 range, right?
Okay.
How many active loans do we have right now, Dave?
I would be guessing, but I would say in the range of 15.
Good. I'm glad that money's being used. That's what it's there for.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
We did.
Oh, we did.
And second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 8B, receive a report from Commissioner Braun on behalf of the Housing Needs Initiative. Dan?
You're busy.
I would say, have you heard my voice enough today already? But see, recently we had the public forum last week, which I thought was pretty well attended and was a good question and answer session. And we talked about current housing issues in New Ulm, and some of the information we've been able to gather with our initiative is we've just completed a survey, and was quite interested to see that a majority of the workforce lives outside of the city limits. The workforce that works in New Ulm lives outside of the city limits of New Ulm. And our survey had indicated there's a pretty good percentage of people that would prefer to live in town but simply couldn't because of housing. So that's one of the primary needs when it comes to the workforce housing that we're trying to address. The other things that we see is our aging population in town and what portion of them are paying an amount that exceeds affordability, which they take as 30% of their household income. So that's another issue. So these things have come to light recently, and so we're working on that. And one of our big pushes that we've been involved with and engaged with recently is offering our support in terms of a written action plan for housing that's going to go with the application for the tax credit for the middle school project. So
I'll just mention the workforce housing survey that we did. We were able to take some of that data and make some rough calculations, and we came up with about 500 housing units.
Potentially,
could
yeah.
potentially
If you look
be-
at the entire workforce and the people, that percentage of the workforce that would prefer to live in town that currently don't, would translate to roughly 500 single-family housing units that would be needed for those folks. So it's a pretty daunting task to think that that would be something we would need or would want to try to undertake. I don't know if that it can be accomplished by simply building 500 new houses. I don't think that's really what we're after. I think what we're looking at is a combination of providing affordable rental housing and other types of housing for our senior population, so a greater portion of them would move out of their single-family homes, thus freeing up existing housing stock for that workforce that would prefer to live in town. So it's all part of a whole big picture that we're trying to.
We got almost 300 responses from that workforce housing survey. We were hoping for 50, so, you know, the more feedback we get, the better our calculations are. So we were very thrilled with the response we got
Right.
from that survey.
There were quite a few people at that event that were looking at retiring or have retired and want to move into those patio homes. And I can tell you, the lady next to me said if we didn't get something going pretty soon, she was going to step on my foot every time she saw me until we got more higher-end affordable patio-type homes.
Right,
So
that's the
is-
public pressure I'm
she
referring
wants-
to.
yeah, she does not want to mow
Now.
lawn anymore.
They want
she
it
told me,
now.
So we have some challenges.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Nothing? Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Hopefully the next one won't be a two-page.